What's going on, guys? In this video, why your chest is not growing? I get asked this question so many times. People look at me, they see my chest, and then they're asking me, why is my chest not growing? They have big shoulders, big arms, they look all big and jacked from everywhere, but their chest is so small without any progress. And they've been training for years. If that's your case, listen till the end. Trust me, you will not regret it. I'll tell you exactly all the factors that might be leading to your chest not growing. Alright, let's jump straight into it. Number one reason is that your focus is on the weight. You're focusing too much on the weight you're lifting. Is that your case? You're just focusing on benching 3 plates or incline pressing 120s or 150s or just pressing as heavy as possible. If that's your case, you just want to progressive on the weight you're using. Take a step back and remember, it's not about the weight you're using. The weight is just a tool to help us reach muscle failure. Alright, if you're benching 3 plates but you're most probably just bouncing the weight off your chest and using your shoulders and not really putting all the tension on your chest, it's not going to do much for your chest growth. Alright, we want to remember, as a bodybuilder, we want to make sure that we're training to reach muscle failure and not just to move a weight from A to B. Alright, and you want to put as much tension on that muscle, isolated. As crazy as it sounds, you're doing a bench press, but you don't want to just load the plates, but rather get your chest to failure. Alright, so instead of just focusing on the weight, do the internal work, the mind-muscle connection, and focus on your chest doing the movement. Number two, because you're just simply not feeling your chest. A muscle you're not feeling will not grow. Okay, let's say you're doing a bench press, but all you feel is your shoulders and your triceps. But rather, when you're doing an incline dumbbell press, you feel it all in your chest. Well, that's what you should be doing. So optimize the exercises that you feel better in your chest. Super important. The feeling will help you also activate more fibers, the mind muscle connection. You're keeping more tension, you're connecting with that muscle, you're bringing it to failure, and that's how it will grow. All right, it's not because you have 315 on the bench press, on the weight, on the bar, and you're repping it for 12 reps that your chest will grow. All right, you might just be doing everything with your shoulders and triceps, and that's why your arms are huge but your chest looks so small and you're out of balance. All right, so feel that muscle. Go back to the basics and ask yourself next time you're on a bench press or doing an exercise, am I feeling it? What am I working on? My triceps? Am I feeling my triceps? Am I feeling my lats? Ask this question, all right? Get inside that muscle. Number three is that you're neglecting the isolations. And you are neglecting something called pre-exhaustion. Isolations. So let's talk about that. A lot of people overly focus on the presses. But when you're doing a bench press, for example, or an incline press, we all know that the chest is bigger than the shoulders and the triceps. So what's going to happen is that your shoulders and your triceps will fail first before your chest will fail, all right? Which will lead to more growth on your shoulders and triceps instead of your chest, all right? So your chest is not really reaching failure because a lot of, all the pressing movement involves your shoulders and your triceps, which will fail before the chest. So that is why isolations come into play. That's why pre-exhaustion is so important. Pre-exhaustion means pre-fatiguing the big muscle before the big compound movement, which can sound like doing a cable fly or a picnic fly to isolate the chest. You see, it's called isolation because now there's no shoulders or triceps, it's just chest. So let's say I brought down my chest from 100% to 80% fatigued, and now I go on the bench press and now I'm pressing, my chest is already fatigued, and after I finish, my chest, my triceps and my shoulders fail at the same time. So that will lead to more chest activation, more fibers from my chest being activated, bringing them to failure, and more growth on the long term. All right, so don't neglect the isolation. If you just think that you can develop a crazy chest just from pressing, it might not be the case for everyone. All right, especially if you're overpowering with your shoulders and triceps, you will just be feeling your triceps. So incorporate more isolations, and for a lot of people, I would just put them one pressing exercise or 2 max, and then more isolation. Don't neglect the isolation, and also use them as a pre-exhaustion tool if you're someone that feel a lot your chest, your shoulders and triceps when you're pressing. All right. When I used to start training 10 years ago, well, I started training 13 years ago, but let's say 10 years ago, I used to only focus on benching heavy. And trust me, I've had one of the strongest bench from the people my age. I was benching 3 plates and a 5 and a 10, but my chest wasn't as big. All right, I had big shoulders, but my chest wasn't so developed. I had big arms, but my chest was not feeling anything up until the time I got injured, and it forced me to just do isolation because I couldn't press anymore. So I was just doing isolations, and trust me, I was pressing at the end of the isolation, but with very lightweight. But then I started seeing an insane amount of progress. All right, so don't neglect them. Trust me. Don't think, oh, machines are for weak people. No, they have their place, and you can use them in your case because your chest is not getting as much tension and connection. Use the isolation for it. So moving on. Number 4. Your form and your technique is not ideal. All right, super simple. Sometimes a little thing, you can be pressing like this and boom, your traps are over activated. Bring your shoulders down. Make sure that your form and your technique is optimized for muscle hypertrophy, not just for powerlifting. All right, I can be benching as a powerlifter and barely feel anything on my chest. Make sure you're benching proper form for bodybuilding to maximize time under tension on your chest, to make sure that you're activating it as much as possible. It's not only about, some people will train in an explosive manner. Being explosive will basically help you engage more muscles, which we don't want because we want to put all the tension on our chest. So why would I be explosive and then compensate with my triceps and shoulders? All right, so remember that. Make sure your form is optimized for what you're doing, and make sure that your form is perfect. Another thing, drop down the weight and work on your form. Number 5, the exercise choices. So like I said also a bit earlier, the exercise choices is super important. It's not because it works for Arnold that it's going to work for you. It's not because it works for your neighbor that it works for you. Go with what you feel best. All right, at the end of the day, you want to feel the muscle. You want to put as much time under tension as possible on this muscle. With heavy enough weight, you got to go with the mind-muscle connection. Make sure that you're really connecting with that muscle. And if an exercise doesn't feel good for you, don't do it. If the bench press hurts your shoulders and you just don't feel anything on your chest, do not do it. If the incline dumbbell press feels better, go with that. If the cable crossover feels better than the dips, then do that. All right, if the dumbbell flies, you don't like them. I don't like dumbbell flies. I go with pec deck machine, so I do that. So basically, the exercise choice is something that only you will decide whatever feels best for you, and stick with that. You don't need to keep changing the exercises. Stick with the one that work and progressively overload on them. All right. So choose the exercises that you feel best. And remember, bodybuilding is an internal sport. It's like putting a nail in the wall. You don't focus on the hammer and you just hit the hammer hard. No, you just give the nail some pulses, slight pulses on the head of the nail to get the job done. That's what bodybuilding is. It's really a focus, targeted work. We're trying to get inside that chest. We're trying to kind of isolate it as much as possible. Take away all the compensation from the shoulder, the triceps, the traps. Make sure that we have good time under tension. Yes, again, control the weight. A lot of people don't control the weight down, and they're pressing and they're basically dropping the weight down. The negative part of the rep is so important. All right, it's as important as pushing up. So don't be that person that is just dropping the weight down just to count rep faster or doing it too fast. Slow down the reps, slow down the time under tension, and trust me, you will see results. There is nobody that can't build their chest. All right, some people tell me, well, it's my genetics, and I look at them train and I'm like, no, it's not your genetics. Trust me, you can do a lot of progress if you train properly. So that's it for this video, guys. Hopefully you like it. Hopefully you build a big chest, and hopefully you leave a nice comment down below. Subscribe and watch this video that's coming up the screen. Ciao.